What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, and today we've got something interesting. We're just going to have a little bit of a chat, but we're going to piss off 50% of cruiser riders, I'd say, because we're talking about why I don't talk about Indian. Do I hate Indian? Am I just an outrageously paid-for Harley simp, or is there something else going on under the skin? Let's hit the road and talk about it.
You know, everybody's an American on the 4th of July, and what's more American than blowing your fingers off with loosely regulated bootleg fireworks while eating a hot dog, saving money? Today and tomorrow, Cardo is offering 20% off their communicators if you use the code SPITE10. Now's your chance to grab the best-in-class comm system with high-quality JBL speakers, long battery life, and DMC mesh connection. It's the perfect addition to any ride. You can get it on the cheap with the code SPITE10 for 20% off. Click that link down in the description.
Okay. Now, I know for a fact that there is pretty much no way to make this video without angering somebody. So I'm just going to power through. And I think the people that I'm going to annoy or irritate mostly are going to be Indian riders. But I may have some things that come off as backhanded compliments to the Harley people. And I just want to say here at the top that no matter which brand you choose to buy from, it's totally fine. Whatever motorcycle makes you happy at the end of the day is what makes you happy. And it doesn't matter what I like. All I can do is just give you my opinion. But with that in mind, let's start out with why I don't like Indian motorcycles. So, first we're going to do a quick little bias control here, because I do have a personal bias that I would like to put out. Maybe this is a grudge that I hold, but back when I was first getting started with motorcycling, the first motorcycle I was looking at was an Indian Scout 60. I liked the idea that it was about as potent as the big Scout. I liked that it was a little bit cheaper. I liked that, you know, Lemmy said I couldn't notice the missing 6th gear in the box. It seemed like a great beginner option. And my local Indian dealer, I'm not sure if they're still here or if they've changed names or changed ownership, I don't remember. But back in the day, they were running a promotion on the Scout. It was a 0 APR for 72 months. It was nuts. They were basically just giving away these Scouts. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. Let's go get one. Because, you know, 72 months on a, what is it, like 10 grand motorcycle, 10 or 11 grand? It's like $100 a month. That was something I could not pass up. So I went to go apply and do all the work, and I was denied. I was denied that loan. I was denied it over 2 points. 2 points on my credit score. And I didn't go back to the Indian dealership. I left and I went to a Harley dealer, and then I got my Street 750. Now, I do think that I'm capable of looking past that and just looking at the motorcycles themselves. But if you want to say I'm biased because I'm holding a grudge against Indian because they didn't let me start on one of their motorcycles, sure. You're willing to, if you want to say that, go for it. I'm not gonna say no, because you know what? It may very well be true. Maybe I have this underlying bias that I can't let go of because I had a 748, not a 750. But whatever. So let's start talking a little bit about, you know, how I view the history of Indian. And I do believe that Indian riders have their own history just slightly wrong. So it's absolutely true that Indian was around before Harley Davidson. Harley's 1904, I believe, and Indian's 1901. They beat him to the punch. It is the first American motorcycle. Absolutely accurate. They were quite famously used in World War I and World War II. The Scout and the Chief were big bikes that sold like hotcakes during the 30s and 40s, and they saw a lot of use overseas during the war. And there's a lot of pride there, and I totally get it. But Indian did not sell their used bikes. They didn't do what Harley did with the WLA, and they didn't give GIs the bikes they had been riding, at least not to my knowledge. And pretty shortly thereafter, Indian went bankrupt. They closed down shop in 1956, I think. 1956, something like that. And that was after, I think, 2 changes of ownership. So to say that Indian is America's longest running motorcycle is incorrect. Indian they don't exist today as they existed in the past. It's a completely different thing, and that I don't really love. But it is also 100% accurate that Indian also made the first American inline 4. That they were making advancements that Harley didn't really deign to, and still hasn't deigned to, because Harley's still making V-twins. Yeah, they're water-cooled now, but they're still just pumping out the same old V-twins that they've been pumping out for 120 years. And I do honestly believe that had Indian not gone the way of the Dodo, the original Indian that is, I think we would see a very different American motorcycling landscape. I think that Indian and Harley Davidson would have pushed each other a lot harder through the years to compete. And I honestly kind of blame Indian for Harley's problems right now, because Harley just didn't compete with anybody in the States. Now they're starting to compete, and that's a good thing. Indian's pressure that they are putting on Harley 100% is felt, and it is 100% making Harley have to work harder to maintain that image of American motorcycling. It's always a good thing to have competition, and the fact that they weren't there for, like, what is it, 60 years? That was a real big bummer. I know that there were a couple of attempts to bring back the Indian brand during the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, but it wasn't really until Polaris bought Indian that they were able to start making those motorcycles again, the ones that are currently out on the road, and the modern Indians as we know them. Now, I do want to take a second and talk about the quote-unquote heritage of Indian. There is a lot of old school heritage to them, but honestly, what I see when I look at what Polaris has done with Indian is they took Victory and they were like, let's take Victory and make them let's trend on Indian's better brand recognition in America, and then let's just take all of the old school stuff that all these old boomers like to buy on Harleys, and let's lean into it hardcore. The modern Indians, like the oh god, unfortunately I don't remember the name of it. I'll put it up on screen with the name. I just think that is a god-awful, ugly motorcycle. And yeah, could it handle better than the equivalent Harley? Sure, probably. Does it have better technology in it? Sure, probably. But it's just, I don't want to ride around on a motorcycle from the 30s, guys. And it looks really old school. That's one of the major differences between Harley Davidson and Indian that I see, is they've been developing their look to maintain that classic silhouette while also modernizing aspects of it. Like, you look at the Road Glide, not the new one, not the you know, Harley Challenger that they made, but the classic Road Glide look is just something about it is that mix of old school and modernity that I really, really like. And it's part of the reason why if I was going to go buy a big touring Harley or Indian, I would buy a Road Glide because I love the way they look. And the Challenger's working on that. They're definitely improving the looks of the Challenger, but I don't know. You look at the rest of the modern looking parts of the bike, and then you look at the engine, and yeah, it makes more power, and yeah, in King of the Baggers, they're basically handicapping the Indians so that Harley can stay competitive, or whatever you're gonna say in the comments about it. I just don't like the look of the power plant. I really don't. I don't like the look of the valve covers on top. It doesn't do anything for me. And it's kind of rare for a motorcycle to for me to just look at it and be like, meh. That nothing about them excites me. And then let's talk about the Scout for just a second here. Yes, great motor, really great motor. But personally, I think the ergonomics on the Scout and the way it's set up just don't work. It's so low, and it's so... The wheelbase is so long that with all that power, it's just breaking the rear tire loose everywhere. That's its one trick. And all of the chrome, they lean really hard into the chrome. It doesn't do it for me. The whole brand is focusing on this like old school push. Now, the one Indian that actually has me excited is the FTR, and it had me excited for a while. But then I rode it again when I did that review a while back, and I gotta say, guys, it's fun for like an hour, and then it's kind of heavy. It's a little, I don't know, I would rather get on a normal naked bike than the FTR. And what I would really like to see is I would like to see Indian change that engine just a little bit and change the structure of the FTR just a little bit and really build that naked bike so that, I don't know, just so that it feels more like a modern naked bike and less like a bike that's trying to compete by itself, because there really isn't a good competitor to the FTR in my brain. I really can't think of one off the top of my head. Yeah, I mean, look at these Road Glides right here. This Road Glide just looks so cool. It's a great looking motorcycle, and there's not really a whole lot you can do to change me of that opinion. It looks mean and aggressive, and so does this Softail, man. Like, I don't know, how do you compete with that? It's got the old school look, but not a 1942 look, you know? Looks like we're at a bit of a rally spot. If you're familiar with Austin, you know Coco's Corner, and it is a nice Sunday out, so I'll catch you guys after we all gas up. Oh, all right, a little bit of hydration to cool off a little bit sitting at Coco's Corner there. A classic haunt for all of the squids. We even saw somebody getting a ticket written up for him, which is a real bummer. He wasn't going all that fast, and he was just kind of cruising. It was on a BMW XR1000, so an easy motorcycle to accidentally get a ticket on, because you end up cruising way faster than you think. But to kind of start rounding up my thoughts here, the biggest issue I have with Indian is they're basically an entire company that, in my eyes, embodies what the Big Four were doing with the cafe racer craze a few years ago. You remember back when it felt like every year there was a new cafe racer coming out, there was a new old school neo-retro motorcycle, and you know, it got to the point where there were multiple versions from the same manufacturer. You'd have you'd have, you know, Yamaha had their XSR line, and they had the SCR 900, and Suzuki's got a handful with the like SV650X and a couple other bikes. I don't remember off the top of my head, but basically there were a whole bunch of cafe racers that came out, and it feels like Indian as a manufacturer is like, or well, Indian is basically just Polaris's way to, under one umbrella, make a bunch of old school motorcycles. You know, does the FTR need the old school paint job? Does it need the old school look? I really don't think so. It makes it cool, sure. It makes it very unique, and it does make it difficult for the FTR to find a competitor, because it's this like flat tracker inspired, not really naked bike. It's not really a standard either. It's an American sport bike, which is weird, you know. It's an aberration, but it doesn't compete with anything. And I feel like the only reason the FTR exists is because they can continue to make these old school inspired motorcycles. They can continue to make them. People aren't going to complain if these motorcycles are old, expensive, and don't have a lot of great technology in them, because they're just the cruiser company. You know, they don't need to compete. And it feels like a bit of a shield. And I'd really like to see Indian forego that, because Polaris makes some really great stuff. And I feel like that if they wanted to, they could make the Indian, or the true American sport bike. And I really would love to see that from an American company, because it doesn't feel like Harley-Davidson has the appetite. And no matter what Indian riders say, yes, their motorcycles are better than Harleys, but they're not competitive with Harleys. Nobody who's looking at a Harley is going to go grab an Indian because it's got better specs. You don't buy a Harley because of the specs. You buy it because it looks cool and it makes you feel good. They're very emotional purchases, and in that sense, the Indian feels like the spec sheet answer to Harley-Davidson. And to make a spec sheet answer to Harley-Davidson is to misunderstand why people come to big American cruisers. At least that's my understanding. And you know, I have a relationship with Harley-Davidson, but I'm also incredibly critical of Harley, to the point where I probably annoy them, actually. They're like, why do we keep bringing this guy out to events? Why do we keep giving him bikes when he just, when he's got nothing but criticisms? But the thing is, I call them out where I feel like they should improve, and I think that there's a lot of places they need to continue to modernize, but I also am happy to say when they do stuff right, like the Pan America. It's a great motorcycle, and they need to do more of it. But it's also entirely accurate that the Lowrider S is a sweet ride, man. So that's going to wrap it up for me. This one was a little bit longer and perhaps a little bit rambly. Just trying to put together why I think that Indian they just don't do it for me. And don't get me wrong, I'm not avoiding Indian motorcycles. I just don't choose to get on them when I have the opportunity. There are other motorcycles that I would like to ride, and as much fun as it might seem when I'm ripping on a motorcycle, and I'm just kind of making fun of it or whatever, I don't like to do that. I don't like to make negative videos. Mostly because everybody says I'm being too mean, or I don't understand it. I like to be positive because it's more fun, and every motorcycle is fun out there, including the Indians. They just don't warm my heart, and I don't want to ride something that doesn't do it for me. You know, that's why I never actually ended up doing a full review on a Versa 650. I probably never will. If I never have to ride a Versus again, I'll be happy. It's not because it's a bad motorcycle, it just doesn't make me happy. And if those bikes do, like I said at the top, more power to you, man. Just because I don't like what you ride doesn't mean what you ride is bad. It means it's the right bike for you, and if you chose a motorcycle that at the end of the day you get off, you take the key out of it, you're walking away, and you look back at it and you're happy with it, you get those kind of goosebumps every time you start it up, then it's the right bike for you. And that's, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And with that, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.